I have enormous respect for Dwight Eisenhower, and my respect for his presidency has been growing by leaps and bounds the more I read. But he had a very interesting episode in his life that's worth exploring, precisely because it gives us a real insight into his relationship with President Harry Truman. During World War II, Mamie Eisenhower, Ike's wife, did not come to London, where he was commander of the Western Front, and she stayed in Washington. And Eisenhower began to have a relationship with Kay Summersby, who was his driver, a member of the British Armed Forces, and they essentially lived together for the last 2 or 3 years of the war. It was a wonderful relationship. Kay wrote about it in her book right after Eisenhower's and Mamie's death, held her silence until then. And but it was a wonderful thing, and most people who knew about it was sort of an open secret, didn't write about it, and decided that it was important because of the strains and the stresses that he had as commander-in-chief, particularly around the D-Day period. But what caused the scandal issue is that at the end of the war, Eisenhower told General Marshall, George C. Marshall, who was the chief of staff, Eisenhower's boss and mentor, that he was going to leave Mamie and bring Kay over to Washington and marry her. And Marshall sent him a fierce note saying, if you do this, I'm going to drum you out of the Army, or I'll break you to private, and your career will be over. And that was such an unprecedented intervention in the Army Chief of Staff to the 5-star general. And Eisenhower was very chastened by it, pulled back, cut off his relationship with Summersby, moved back to Washington, reunited with Mamie, and by all accounts remained happily married until his death in the mid-1960s. But the story didn't end there. In 1952, when Eisenhower was running for president as a Republican, he was opposed by Adlai Stevenson as the Democratic candidate. And during the course, this was a period of McCarthyism and Nixon and everybody accusing everybody else of being a communist or a pinko, and being gay was an important part of those accusations. And at that point, Truman learned that McCarthy was going to issue a statement saying that Stevenson was gay. And that was a fierce epithet back then. You couldn't possibly be anything worse than gay back then. And Truman was shaken by that, outraged by it. Stevenson, by the way, was divorced and single at the time, probably not gay. He was a womanizer, if anything. But in any case, the accusation cut to the quick. So Truman let Eisenhower know through an intermediary that if McCarthy went with that accusation, he, Truman, would release Marshall's letter to Eisenhower that was still in the military files. That would probably have ended Eisenhower's candidacy and his career and his marriage all at once. And Eisenhower got McCarthy to back down from that. The charge was never made, the letter was never released, and in fact Truman had the letter destroyed. But the fact that Truman had threatened that left such bad blood between him and Eisenhower that when Eisenhower was elected president, Truman wouldn't speak to him on the way to the swearing in. The Trumans did not invite the Eisenhowers in for tea, as is usually the case. When Eisenhower then moved into the White House, he didn't invite the Trumans in, and to my knowledge, they never communicated for the rest of their lives. A terrible fissure from what was, after all, a very close relationship. Truman had appointed Eisenhower commander-in-chief of NATO. He had promoted Eisenhower's career. In 1948, there was some speculation that Truman might not run and might endorse Eisenhower as a Democrat running for president, and yet the relationship blew apart. All of this only came out a few years ago in a book about Eisenhower by Gene Smith that really revealed this, and it's a very interesting footnote to history. Thanks for watching. Next week, we have a surprise on the Lunch Alert. I sat down with Ed Klein, the author of the book Unlikable about Hillary. and previously Blood Feud, which goes into depth in the Obama, Hillary, Michelle, Valerie, Jared, Bill relationship or lack thereof. And it's fascinating. It's 5 interviews, and it really gets to the core of Hillary Clinton and the email scandal and the whole bit. You'll find it absolutely fascinating. So all 5 videos next week are going to be on different aspects of that subject. Monday, we discuss whether Hillary will be indicted. Tuesday, we discuss the derivation and the consequences of the scandal of the Obamas and the Clintons. Wednesday, we probe issues of Hillary's health that could be precarious and could be a factor in the campaign. On Thursday, we talk about why Hillary keeps doing this to herself, why she keeps getting herself into these scrapes. And Friday, we probe whether Bill really wants Hillary to be president or whether there's some ambivalence there. I think you'll love him. Thanks for watching.